I woke up one morning knowing exactly how to get to a house I'd never been to. The street name, the color of the front door, even which step on the porch creaked. The address belonged to my husband's childhood friend, a woman named Delia, and when I described it out loud, my husband went completely white. That morning started like every other Tuesday. The alarm at 6:15, the smell of the coffee I'd set to brew the night before, Marcus already in the shower, the water running through the pipes in that familiar rhythm I'd listened to for 11 years. I lay there in the dark for a moment with my eyes open, and that's when it hit me. Not like a dream fading, but like a memory sharpening. A red door with a brass knocker shaped like a fish, a cracked porch step, third from the top, a kitchen that smelled like burnt sugar and pine cleaner. I knew that house the way you know somewhere you've been 100 times, except I had never been there. I want to tell you who I was before that morning, because it matters. It matters that you understand what I had built and what was quietly being stolen from me while I was too trusting to notice. My name is Claire. I grew up in a small mill town in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everybody knows your parents' business and your grandmother's maiden name. I was the first person in my family to finish college. I worked nights at a hotel front desk to pay for it, slept 4 hours a day, graduated with honors in accounting. I was not the woman things happened to. I was the woman who made things happen. I need you to remember that. I met Marcus at 28 at a work function I almost didn't attend because I had a head cold and a deadline. He was smart and quiet, and he laughed at exactly the right moments. We dated for 2 years, got engaged, got married in a small ceremony in June with my Aunt Rosa crying in the front row and Marcus's mother clutching her handbag like someone might take it. We bought a house in a suburb outside Columbus. We put down roots. We talked about children on and off for years without ever quite deciding. We had a good life. I believe that completely. What I did not know, could not have imagined, was that Marcus had a whole other layer of existence running parallel to ours. Not a secret family, not a hidden bank account, something stranger and honestly more devastating than either of those things. Delia Marsh had been Marcus's friend since college. He mentioned her occasionally, casually, the way you mention background furniture. Delia's moving to Cleveland. Delia got a new job. I had met her exactly once at a mutual friend's birthday party, 5 years into my marriage. She was tall, soft-spoken, with this way of smiling that never quite reached her eyes. I didn't think about her much. I had no reason to, until I woke up knowing where she lived. I sat up in bed and said it out loud to the empty room before Marcus came back from the shower. I said the street name and then the house color, dusty blue. And then I said, "There's a fish knocker on the door and the third porch step is cracked." And Marcus walked out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist and stopped like he'd walked into a wall. The color left his face so completely and so fast that it looked like someone had simply switched a light off behind his eyes. He stood there for 3 full seconds, not saying a word, and in those 3 seconds, something ancient and animal in my gut told me that whatever came next was going to change everything. "How do you know that?" he said. Not a question. Barely even words. I told him I didn't know how I knew it. I told him I'd woken up with it in my head like a memory, crisp and specific, the way you remember your own childhood bedroom. I watched his jaw move without producing sound. I watched him decide something. "You must have heard me mention it," he said finally, but his hands were shaking. I didn't push it that morning. I'm a methodical person. I went to work. I sat at my desk. I ran numbers that didn't matter to me at all that day. And I thought. I thought about what else had been in my head that morning. There was more than just the house. I knew Delia took her coffee with oat milk and 1 sugar. I knew she kept a spare key under a ceramic frog near the back fence. I knew she had a scar on her left forearm from a childhood accident involving a wire fence. I knew the layout of her living room, the quilt on her couch, the specific blue of her bedroom walls. I knew these things the way I knew my own face in the mirror. By Thursday, I had started writing things down. Every fragment, every detail. The list grew to 2 pages. And when I looked at what I'd written, a very cold, very clear thought formed itself in the center of my mind. These were not things I'd overheard. These were things witnessed. These were things experienced. I hired someone to follow Marcus the following week. I know how that sounds. I want to tell you that I agonized over it, that it felt dramatic and paranoid, but the truth is, it felt like the most rational thing I had ever done. The man I found was a former insurance investigator named Gary, who charged $400 for 3 days and delivered a manila envelope to my office on a Friday afternoon. I opened it at my desk with the door closed. Marcus had been going to Delia's house every Tuesday and Thursday for at least the past 4 months. Every time I was at my book club, at my yoga class, reliably and predictably out of the house for 2 to 3 hours, he was at her red door with the fish knocker. Gary had photographs, Marcus on the porch, Marcus inside, visible through the front window, Marcus staying an average of 2 hours and 12 minutes before driving home. That part, the affair, would have been enough to destroy me, but it was what Gary wrote in his notes at the back of the envelope that made my hands go numb. Subject and female resident appeared to spend significant time going through boxes of photographs and personal items belonging to the surveillance target's wife. Items appeared to include personal journals, family photographs, and what may be medical or legal documents. My photographs, my journals, my documents. They had been in my house, in my home office, in the locked drawer of my filing cabinet, that I was now realizing Marcus had full access to. I went home that night and I checked. The drawer wasn't forced. Nothing looked disturbed, but I knew my own filing system, and I knew, in the specific, methodical way I knew everything about my own life, that the manila folders had been moved, replaced slightly wrong, not quite in the order I maintained them. Someone had been through every personal document I owned. My childhood journals, letters from my late mother, my medical history, my therapy notes from the 2 years I'd spent processing my mother's death. My therapy notes. They had read my therapy notes. That thought cracked something open in me that I don't have a clean word for. It was beyond violation. It was a kind of theft I hadn't known was possible. The theft of your inner life, your private grief, your most unguarded self. And suddenly I understood why I'd woken up knowing Delia's house, because she'd been studying me. She'd been learning me, absorbing me, from the inside out. Every vulnerability, every old wound, every private fear. And for reasons I didn't yet fully understand, she had wanted to know me the way only I should know myself. I confronted Marcus on a Sunday. I chose Sunday deliberately. No work to escape to, nowhere to be. I made coffee, I set the mugs on the table, and I put Gary's envelope down between us like a verdict. He looked at it for a long moment before he looked at me. "Claire, don't," I said. "Don't start with my name like that. Don't use my name to buy yourself a second." He tried 3 different versions of the truth before he landed on the real one, and each version cost him something visible. First, it was just the affair, just loneliness, just a mistake. Then it was that Delia had asked to see photographs of me, just out of curiosity, just because he'd talked about me so much. Then finally, when I laid out the list, 2 pages, handwritten, everything I'd woken up knowing, his face collapsed entirely. "She said she just wanted to understand you," he said. "She said she had feelings for me, but she needed to..." She needed to know you first. Know who she was. He stopped, swallowed, who she was dealing with. She needed to know who she was dealing with, I repeated. She's not well, Claire. She has this thing where she builds these. She read my therapy notes, Marcus. Silence. She built a version of me inside her head using my private grief and my dead mother's letters, I said, and my voice was so steady it scared me. She memorized my life and fed it back into her own psychology until she dreamed about my house. And you handed her the keys, literally. You took my keys and you copied them, and you let her in. He didn't deny it. That was the thing I've never quite recovered from. He didn't deny a single word. What happened next, I want to be precise about. I did not scream. I did not throw things. I am not that woman. And more importantly, I am an accountant who understands that documented evidence is worth more than emotional satisfaction. So I went back to my office, I closed the door, and I spent the next 6 weeks doing what I do best. I gathered everything. Gary's surveillance report, Marcus's phone records, which I was legally entitled to pull from our shared family plan, photographs, timestamps. And then I did something that Marcus never anticipated, because he had fundamentally misunderstood who I was, despite 11 years of marriage. I contacted a family attorney and a forensic accountant on the same day, because it turned out, and this was the piece Marcus had been hiding underneath everything else, the reason Delia had really wanted my financial documents, our business was not what I thought it was. Marcus and I co-owned a rental property company we'd built together over 8 years. 12 units, solid income, and for the past 3 years, Marcus had been quietly funneling rental income into a separate LLC that I didn't know existed, named after a street in Delia's neighborhood. He wasn't just having an affair. He was building a future. Without me. With my money. The forensic accountant found $214,000. The divorce was not ugly, because I did not allow it to be ugly. I allowed it to be surgical. My attorney was a woman named Frances, who wore the same pearl earrings every day and had a voice like cold water, and she was extraordinary. We froze every joint asset before Marcus even understood what was happening. We documented the financial fraud with a precision that left no room for negotiation. Marcus's attorney told my attorney that Marcus was blindsided. Frances relayed this to me without expression. I told her that was accurate. Delia, I learned through my attorney's research, had done this before. Not identically, but the pattern was there. A previous relationship where the man's wife had later reported harassing behavior, obsessive information gathering, a sense of being studied. Nothing criminal had ever been charged because nothing had been quite provable. Until now. Because now there was a paper trail through my financial documents, and my attorney filed a civil suit for invasion of privacy that Delia settled quietly, without admitting anything, for $60,000. She moved out of state within 4 months of the settlement. Her red door with the fish knocker is someone else's problem now. Marcus lost the rental properties in the settlement. All 12 units reverted to my sole ownership through the fraud finding, which made the standard divorce asset split almost beside the point. He moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a part of Columbus I've never needed to drive through. I heard through a mutual friend that he and Delia lasted about 8 months after the divorce before she ended it. I'm not surprised. She had been interested in me. She'd built her obsession out of my history, my grief, my handwriting in journals I'd kept since I was 19. When I was gone, when she couldn't access me anymore, I imagine there wasn't much left to hold her attention. I think about that sometimes. The strange, cold complement of it. She wanted to consume me, and instead I outlasted her entirely. It's been 3 years now. I still own the rental company. I hired a property manager named Donna who is magnificently competent and deeply uninterested in drama, which I find deeply relaxing. I moved to a house with a blue door, not dusty blue, but a clear, strong blue, like a September sky, and I have a porch without a single cracked step. I checked. I still think about that morning sometimes, waking up with memories that weren't mine, the borrowed geography of another woman's obsession lodged in my head like a splinter. It was the most unsettling experience of my life, and also, in the end, the thing that saved me. If I hadn't known that house, I would never have asked the question. And if I hadn't asked the question, I might have spent another decade handing my life to someone who was quietly selling it. I woke up knowing too much. And then I went and found out the rest. That's the version of this story I choose to tell myself now. Not the one where I was foolish or naive or too busy building something to notice the cracks, the one where I was paying attention, the one where the knowledge found me before the damage finished, the one where I won.